All right, welcome to the Business Roundtable podcast. My name is David Carr, founder of Steward Your Business, where we bring people together to accomplish great things. And we have a brand new guest this week, Tara Landis from Bell Rock. We're super excited to have you here, Tara.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I'm excited too.
Yeah, it's so great. You and I, what's funny, I have mutual connection. We had a recording recently of Jonathan Bennett on our podcast, which I know you guys are longtime friends and
hmm
connections, and I'm super excited to have you here. Another guest from up in the Great White North, I would say, from the funny folks that know Strange Brew, but Canada. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you
Well,
here.
thanks so
Uh,
much. I'll try to be really super nice.
No, it's good. I love having different guests, and particularly your topic we're going to get into today about ethical influence. How do we drive results in business? And influence is so important more than ever, I feel like
hmm
today, because there's not a lot of people that are not credible in
hmm
what they're uh, saying, what they're showing up, and people are like, "Oh, I don't know if I trust that." But before we get into the meat of the meeting today, if you will, our podcast
Yeah.
episode. Tell me a little bit more about Bell Rock, why you started Bell Rock, in 2008, and what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for asking. So I
Yeah,
started in
absolutely.
2008 because I'd been working with small business owners throughout North America, helping them solve their problems and doing what we call deep implementation. So, like embedding
Mm.
a consultant into their environment to help them solve whatever challenges they had. And I had my first child and came to my senses and realized I wanted to move back to Vancouver, where I'm from, and I didn't want to be on an airplane 5 days a week. So that's how the company got started, or why the company got started. And we once again worked throughout North America after taking a brief pause while I stayed home with my kid. But yeah, we focused with on smaller businesses, helping them put in foundational systems, and we also run a management training program. So we help new managers become even better managers, and existing managers become the best managers ever.
I love that. I feel like that's really in congruence with Steward Your Business. I feel the
Mm,
same passion in Tara, and we need that help to help folks transition and become better leaders. And I work with small businesses and their teams. And so as you're listening as a business owner or a leader, Tara's another resource here. And we love to collaborate with all of these different voices because we all need help along the way. And we can go further, faster when we have folks like you, Tara, on here and helping
mhm,
and sharing some insights. Now you've been doing this for years. You have gone and helped hundreds of graduates.
mhm.
You are certified with Cialdini Influence in Change Management, which is another one that different perspective. Again, that's why I love having you on here. Um, Tell me, one of the things you're seeing in the work that you're doing, because I think sometimes business owners are focusing on maybe not solving the right problems and they're going in different areas and like, oh, let's do this, let's get another system, let's buy this program, and talk a little bit about how do we solve one of the toughest problems in business and more permanently. But where are we missing the mark as business owners?
Right. I first of all, I think that most business owners do a pretty good job. Like they're good people. They're trying hard.
Yes.
Heart's in the right place. There are some, good for nothing people out there, but for the most part, most people are good people trying hard. But
Yes.
often, especially in small business, they haven't actually been to business school. They often learn from the school of hard knocks.
Mm.
They know their trade really well, perhaps, but not necessarily have the business tools. And those tools, like most of the challenges that small businesses face, are not
Mhm.
unique. Most of them we see across multiple industries and in multiple uh, sizes of companies. Similar problem, different people, of course, but
Mhm.
these problems have been solved before. And so I think one of the issues that can get in the way is just not looking for those resources or not knowing where to look,
Mhm.
because it's very unusual that a problem is unique. It's usually
Mhm.
been solved before. So that's one thing, is just knowing where to look for the
Yep.
information. But another thing that can get in the way is people's habits. We've just been doing it this way for so darn long. We don't even notice we're doing it anymore. It's,
Yeah.
it's that old saying about the fish and the water and, what's water? What are you talking about? Because it's just all around them all the time. They don't notice it. And so
Hmm.
that habit piece can be extremely challenging in finding the root cause of problems. The other thing that really gets in the way of leaders solving problems is just the emotional piece of it. Fear of
Hmm.
change, fear of the unknown, fear that if I pay my best project manager more than all the other ones are going to find out and they're going to quit. Fear that if I don't pay my best project manager more than all the other ones, then she's going to find out and she's going to quit, right? It cuts both
Hmm.
ways and it's
Yes.
so debilitating from even moving forward. Um,
Hmm.
but I think overall, I would just say it's perspective. I mean,
Hmm.
you have one, I have
Yep.
one. We're both 100% right in our perspective because it's the
Hmm.
way we see things, but our perspectives may be different, and so
Right.
that can be a challenge.
Absolutely. Well, I think that, and again, having somebody like yourself here come in, if you don't know, you don't know, and like how
Mhm,
getting some kind of an assessment or baseline, where are you at?
mhm,
Like, so maybe you're doing pretty good on processes or systems, or maybe you're covered. We have different voices on this podcast all the time. Maybe your legal is good, or maybe your cybersecurity is covered. Great. But what I found oftentimes, and this is where you specialize too, is your people are dynamic. There's lots of things going on. So every time you add a new person into the mix, that's like what I call a storm of change.
yeah,
And so, you know, identifying what I found is they may not know unless they have somebody coming in there and asking the questions like yourself,
mhm,
right?
mhm, exactly, yeah, just offering that perspective.
Right. Well, so I guess is to your point, Tara, and what I'm hearing is be curious as a business owner of like what's working, or maybe you're breathing in and you don't realize, and like getting there's a point of like going to the doctor, getting regular checkups, right? Because we
Mhm,
don't see some things.
yep,
And sometimes it can be a little intimidating, but I think finding a good consultant like yourself, Tara, is you're not going to beat them up over the head. You're like, look, I'm here to help you. I'm not going to
mhm,
like try to make you feel bad about yourself. It's just, hey, let's just deal with the facts of what's going on here, right? Because then you can fix
yeah.
it.
Well, yes, I agree with you. And often what we find are things that they're good at and could be great at. And so I
Mm,
think that's also important to consider is that when we go in and do an analysis and take a look at what's working and what's not, sometimes the stuff that's not working isn't even worth dealing with.
mm,
It may
mhm,
not even be core. How did that thing get added on there? Oh, someone asked it for some time ago and now we just do it, but is it actually providing any value? Maybe not. And meantime, we're amazing at this thing over here, but we're not promoting it very much, so we don't do it as often. Like
mhm.
I don't know what we'll find when we go in and do an assessment, but I can say people shouldn't assume we're looking for problems. Sometimes we're looking for taking things from good to great.
I like that. I like that. Well, and that gets into kind of a follow-up conversation that I want to get into because with your expertise of influence and ethical
Hmm.
influence in particular in leadership, because I think sometimes we can undermine ourselves in trying to influence people and not doing it like in our natural way, like you said, Tara. And so I'd love
Hmm.
to unpack a little bit with us for those on the podcast here today. What do you define as ethical influence? What does that mean to you when I say that word?
Sure. Well, if we just start with influence, first of
Hmm.
all,
Yeah.
influencing is basically, it's getting people, either at work or at home or wherever, it's getting people to say yes a little bit more often.
Hmm.
Life is just a little bit easier when we can get people to say yes and agree with us.
Hmm.
So that's influence, and there are many ways to influence people. For example, if we could use money, if I pay you a little more, will you do this thing? Like that is a form of influence. Or we could use force or even violence. I mean,
Mm.
whole regimes are created around that. The problem with those techniques is that they aren't necessarily long lasting.
Mm.
How many business owners have you sure you've
Yeah.
spoken to many who are complaining, I gave them that bonus in December and it's January and the effect's already worn off. What's
Yeah.
going on with that? Or,
Uh-huh.
I just told them if you don't do it, I'm going to fire you. And it might work for a while, but it always ends up not sticking.
Hmm.
And so what we focus on is this ethical influence, which basically means if it's good for you and it's good for me, if we've got a win-win solution here, then let's keep going. Let's go
Hmm.
forward. And so there are different tactics that we can use to persuade people in an ethical way.
Right. I think you brought up some really good examples of how you can influence people in a not healthy way, like regime change, and there's
Yeah,
ways of doing it in a very unhealthy way. And I don't think some people even, and they may not be conditioned so long, maybe Tara, but that they think it's actually a good thing. They're like, because well, it gets results, right? You know, like
yeah.
yeah, but it's not good for everybody, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
and the results may not stick.
yeah.
And more than anything else at Bell Rock, we're about lasting results. We don't
Mm.
actually see a point in working with clients that where it's not going to stick. It has to
Hmm.
stick. Otherwise, you didn't deliver the value. And
Right.
so ethical influence really feeds into that because we want these things to stick.
Yeah. Well, so so I know one of the ones we authors we've read is like Daniel Pink. He talks about like most people
Mhm.
spend about 40 to 80% of their workday trying to influence people.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
right?
41%
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, the
Well,
research
something
was
like that. Yeah. So
yeah,
a good
41%.
you
Yeah.
know exactly. You're right on the money.
Yeah.
So something in that's a good amount of time. So can you walk us through then perhaps ways that we could be doing it in a healthier way, Tara? Like
Sure.
yeah.
Well, yeah, so Dr. Robert Cialdini in the 80s published a book called Influence,
Hmm.
and in it he uncovers the 7 sort of principles of ethical influence and persuasion. What that and we won't go through all of those today, of
Hmm.
course, but what it's predicated on is some research by a Nobel Prize winner named Daniel Kahneman.
Mm.
So Kahneman won, although he's a behavioral scientist, he won the Nobel Prize for economics, which is weird. Like, why is a behavioral scientist winning a prize for economics?
Right.
But what he actually uncovered, see, before Kahneman's research, the world sort of generally accepted that humans make decisions in rational ways, that we think
Mm.
through these things. But what Kahneman found is about 95% of the time, we're running on automatic pilot. And if you've ever driven a car, when you first learned to drive, man, you were thinking about everything. You had to
Mhm.
concentrate so hard. You'd hit the gas and the car would go, and then you'd hit the brake and you go like this, and it was so hard. But a decade or two later, sometimes I get behind the wheel of my car and then I get to where I was going and I don't even remember the journey. I'm so on automatic pilot.
Yes.
And I hope I'm not alone in that because otherwise
Yep,
I'm a
yep.
real
Me
menace out
too.
there. But but that's basically what Kahneman uncovered is that we are operating on automatic pilot. What Cialdini then added to that was, okay, how can we activate those automatic pilot decisions? So,
Mm.
for example, there's a principle of liking. We like to agree with people who we like.
Mhm.
So if we can activate on the principles of liking, we will have a better effectiveness in terms of influence. So think about that. Think about sort of the manager who just gets along really well with his team. Not not lets them get away with stuff, but they have
Mhm.
something in common and they kind of like each other and they found these things. Well, when they have a difficult conversation, it's easier because they like each other.
Yes.
Um, and so these are the kinds of principles that we talk about in ethical influence.
Mhm. I mean, that's it's so important if you understand that. I think the word sometimes, like you said, kind of putting this in perspective, Taldina broke it down. I think understanding like, oh, I didn't even realize I'm doing this. Like
Yes.
I'm going in automatic pilot. We don't think through that. But then when you realize, oh, that's what I'm doing, it could either be helping me or hurting me in the relationships, right?
Yeah, and then there are all of these you're bang on, and then there are all of these little things that you can do to further activate on the principles that he's
Hmm.
he's laid out. So if I go back again to liking, what
Hmm.
can we what how can we use that? Well, one study showed that if we build rapport before getting down to business, find that liking,
Yeah.
we are far more likely to get a deal. So they did a study. They actually did a study online with negotiation. So they took two different MBA schools
Mm-hmm.
and broke the different groups into teams. And with one group, they said, time is money, get down to business, try to get a negotiated settlement with whatever the scenario was.
Mm-hmm.
And in the other group, they said, before you get to business, get to know each other a little bit, find some common ground. And the group that found the common ground came to resolution, came to a negotiated settlement way more often than the
Wow.
group that just got down to business. And that's activating on that principle of liking. We like to do deals with people who we like. So
Wow.
so do your homework, find some common ground. And so if you're a manager of an employee, find some common ground. If you have a client, find some, whatever it is, try to activate on that liking principle.
I like, well, that's a, as you guys are listening in, that's gold right now. You could just take that to the bank with you. Because to your point, though, I know I've worked with people, Tara, that are like, let's just get it done. Let's get right to the point.
Yep.
And then they're undermining their influence. They're actually not going to get the deal done. To your point, they're just pushing, this is the way it should be done. And they miss the opportunity to, like you said, actually think through this a little bit more, do the homework and build that. And you're going to actually be winning in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. They think it's a waste of time. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't foolproof. It's not 100% guarantees. Humans
Sure.
are human. But what it does is it stacks the odds in your favor. And
Mm-hmm.
really that's all we can do, right? Is sort of build up these small things that can lead to outsized results to stack the odds in our favor.
No, I think that's great. Now, I love to maybe dig a little bit. You and I have worked with professional services firms, the AEC
Hmm.
space, architecture, engineering, construction,
Yep.
technical professionals. What is, you mentioned this was one problem for people perhaps in sales, but what's another thing, the common challenge you see someone moving from a technical doer to a
Hmm.
manager or a leader where they are maybe undermining their influence? And I'll give you an example for me real quick, because I
Sure.
knew what I was taking over leading, and I was a technical person, and I felt like I had to know all the answers. Like I had to show like I knew everything, and I realized that put a dissonance between me and the people now that I was kind of
Mm.
overseeing. So I didn't
Hmm.
have the influence that I wanted to, and I realized I was frustrated by that, and then I realized, okay, but then what do I show? How do I, you know,
Hmm.
influence them in a positive way? I don't want to just show them like I don't know what I'm doing, right? So can you walk through a little bit of like what do you see in that space?
Well, I definitely see what you're
Yeah.
describing, and different people handle it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that on one hand, there is an influence principle of authority.
Mm-hmm.
So, in fact, people do tend to listen to and follow the advice of people that they think know more about a topic than they do. So
Mm-hmm.
you're right. When a person becomes a leader for the first time, it's understandable why they'd feel like, oh, I don't know enough. But there's another principle they can activate on instead, which is the principle of unity. So unity is I'm in Vancouver, Canada. We have a hockey team here called the Canucks, and there are a lot of people here who are fans of the Canucks. So you can activate on that principle of liking. Bear with me here. Activating on the principle of liking would be, oh, we both like the Canucks and we talk a little bit about the game. But being actually on the Canucks, if we were both Canucks, that would be activating on the principle of unity, where we're
Mm-hmm.
both on the same team and we're trying to work together. So
Yes.
somebody who gets promoted to be a new manager, instead of trying to be all authoritative and the boss, another choice there is to co-create. Like instead of asking for feedback, ask for advice. Do you have any advice for me? Put yourself
Mm-hmm.
in my shoes. What advice do you have? And now
Mm-hmm.
they're co-creating with that employee, not
Yep.
telling them what to do, but creating it together and therefore bonding themselves more as a team.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think um this is not just because I've lived this myself, this is not an overnight thing. And this is where I
Yeah.
feel like having somebody like you or me, Tara, come
Yeah.
alongside and guiding them. Because I could watch a video or read a book, but there's like the actual practice of this. You speak to that a
Yes.
little bit about that, Tara. Like, how do you work with people? How do you walk them through your program to get them more confident in that? Because the first time, like, I've never done it, like riding a bike. It's like, oh, I've never done this before. How
Absolutely.
do I create unity? I've never done it before.
Exactly. Well, we actually offer management training programs, so people come to classes and learn the principles, sort of like we're
Mm-hmm.
talking right now.
Yeah.
And we give them specific exercises so that they can, first of all, practice in class, in a
Mm-hmm.
group.
Mm-hmm.
But then they have assignments that they have to go do with their people. They have to
Mm-hmm.
try it.
Yep.
And with all of our classes, what's really important to us, as I said earlier, is that things stick. So with every class comes one-on-one coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So once they've gone and tried it with their team, they then get a one-on-one coach to talk through how it went, how to do it slightly different, maybe improve the technique, maybe not have them throw the whole thing out just because
Mm-hmm.
maybe one
Mm-hmm.
thing didn't go so well. So for us, it's, really important principle to me is just get started. But the other
Yes.
one is stick with it, stick
Right.
with it and you'll get better. It's just the
Yeah.
driving, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
first learn to drive, if you were just that good forever at that first drive, oh my goodness, you'd be in trouble.
Uh, well, and I think sometimes people in our instantaneous society today, they
Yeah.
want to see things happen so quickly, but they don't. They lose the motivation. They lose that drive, and if they could just stick with it, like you said, longer, right, Tara?
Yeah, and celebrate their successes instead of just finding everything that went wrong.
That's a really good point too, Tara. Like celebrating, because I remember bringing that up in a company. To your point earlier about the sales component, but just as a different experience of like building maybe unity. Of like I worked with a business owner, and they just didn't see the value on like celebrating once. We got a lot of that. We got a lot of stuff to
Yeah.
get done. We got a lot of things on the list. We can't spend 5 minutes on the agenda celebrating. Can you speak a
Mm.
little bit about celebrating in the workspace?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's part of motivation.
Yeah.
It turns out that humans aren't robots. And if you want a robot, there are lots of them out there. So go for it. Um, but psychologically speaking, we like to see ourselves making progress.
Mm-hmm.
Progress feels good.
Mm-hmm.
My 15-year-old is learning the guitar and he's practicing a lot. And this is totally of his own volition. No one's making him play this instrument. He wants to. And when
Mm-hmm.
he gets just a little bit better, he gets so excited. And then he does more practicing. And again, nobody's forcing this on him. Well, what
Mm-hmm.
if you could apply that principle at work? What if a manager could be applying that, like, oh, well, you did, maybe we got this far to go, but we're here. And that
Mm-hmm.
is progress, which makes
Yes.
the person feel like, yeah, I did that. I can do more.
Yes.
Even when I write proposals for work, at the end of the proposal in the cover letter, I always say, and congratulations for taking this first step. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving them this sort of endowed progress. You are already on the path.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations. Let's keep going. Which, whether you do it with me or somebody else, you're doing good work here. And
Mm-hmm.
that is activating on the influence principle of consistency, which
Mm-hmm.
is people not we should always be consistent with others with what we say, but it's more that people want to be consistent with their own behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
if we can show, hey, you practice the guitar and you got this little bit of success, way to go, they're more likely to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. So leaders also can take, as you said, 5 minutes to say, see this stuff that you did, please keep doing that all day long.
Mm-hmm.
This is good
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Just to be
Right.
clear, loving this part. Now we can talk about this.
Right. I think that's so important, Tara, that you broke that down, because I've seen people at times withhold celebrating the good part because
Yeah.
they're like, well, I don't want to celebrate that part because we got this part. And if I
Yeah.
celebrate this, they're not going to focus on that. And I think you're breaking that down and giving an example of your son. Like, no, if they see they make progress, they really will keep motivated. Right.
Yes, and it's not just kids. Kids. We were all kids once, so
Yeah.
they're good
Yep.
examples. But I'll take this a step further. There was a study
Yes.
they did. You're going to think this is totally non sequitur, but it's not. So they did a study about consistency with loyalty cards. So those cards, like you go to the gas station for a car wash, and
Mm-hmm.
you do 8 car
Oh,
washes, and you get the ninth one free. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
Little
Mm-hmm.
cards. Okay, so they did a study, and one of the cards that they gave out had 8 blank spaces. So you do 8, and then the ninth is free. And with that, they found that 19% of people they gave these cards to made no progress. Okay, they didn't complete the loyalty card, but with people, sorry, 19% of them completed the loyalty card. So they had 8 blank spaces. 19% of people did all 8 and got one free.
Mm.
In the other group, they gave out a loyalty card with 10 open spaces, but they put stars in the first 2. So it's like they'd already started. They gave them for free. It was like 2 free, even though either way, both card, they had to do 8. Okay.
Yes, got it.
So on the one where they gave them 2 free, 34% of people completed the card.
Wow.
And that's almost a 79% increase in results just by saying, look, you've already started.
Hmm.
Doesn't cost anything. It's a moment of ethical persuasion. It didn't
Yes,
cost anything more. It's good for you. It's good for me. We're good to go. And we got, almost double
that's
the
incredible.
results.
I love the background you're bringing, the studies. This is why I brought Tara on here, because she's got
Mhm.
this a wealth of knowledge and experience doing this. And I think sometimes people think, oh, this is woo woo stuff. No, it's science based. It's understanding these things. These quote unquote soft skills are very
Yeah,
powerful, and there's backing to them, right, Tara? Yeah,
exactly. And I like that you said it's science-based because it
yeah,
is. They study this stuff in controlled environments to
hmm,
figure out what works and what doesn't.
right. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes people want to just Tara, I think sometimes, like, because I work with a lot of companies, and they want to buy, the next pro, like, system thing or
Software.
some
Yeah.
software, right? The shiny object, and it's like, well, the people don't need this. They don't, and they don't, and that's why I founded called Steward Your Business. Why I founded the company about
Yeah.
steward your people, are the greatest assets. And I think that's why I love what you're doing at Bell Rock. By the way, folks, if you want to connect with Tara, we're connected on LinkedIn, and I'll put the notes to Bell Rock. You guys can connect with her, and please do. She creates some great. I just talked with her earlier today. She was putting some posts on her LinkedIn, some great resources there. So go there. But I think, talk to whatever the mindset, or maybe the limitation that you see in the business owner, or even the individual, of like, am I worth it? Should I spend the money and time on this? Instead of where we only have so much time and so much money, but the dividends that you see, like, what would be, how to overcome that objection in themselves. Tara, can you speak a little bit to that?
But yeah, just clarify for me the
Where
objection to spending.
they may be hesitant of, like, why should I spend the time in going through a program like this, going through
Right,
getting this help, because they feel like, am I worth it? Is it going to make that
right,
much difference in my life, right, at the
right.
end of the
Well,
day?
I like the question because there are a number of ways to answer it
Yeah.
using the principles of persuasion. So, for
Hmm.
example, should I do it? Well, we could use social proof. Thousands of other people have done it and found
Hmm.
it helpful. So, if those people are like you, that might be an indication that it's a good idea to try. We've been doing this for 25 years as well, so that's a long time. We've got a little
Yes.
bit of experience and authority. But the biggest objection, as you said, is usually it's actually not cost. They're not worried about cost. They're worried about value. Are we
Mm.
going to are we going to get the value? And that's why at Bell Rock, our brand promise 100% is if you don't see value, don't pay us. Like, just,
Mhm.
we don't sign contracts, don't pay. So basically, try it. Why wouldn't you just get started? If you get started
Yes.
and it works out, we would love you to pay us. If we get started and it works out and you just decide not to pay us, we may not show back up again
Mhm.
another
Mhm.
time when you call. That
Yeah.
you know, we'll
Yeah.
shake hands and part ways, and that'll be that.
Absolutely. Well, I
Yeah.
think it's all, yeah, value is huge. And
Hmm.
I think I found, at least some point, where there's a switch where it's like, oh no, I'm actually valuable. It's worth it. And I think in I want to be, at least for me, Tara, in my own journey, I was like, okay, I realized if I want to be an effective leader, I better start working on myself first.
Yeah.
Because if I want people to show up and I'm not willing to do the work, they're probably not going to do the work, right?
Yeah, and I also think you're making me think of something else, which is especially in architecture, engineering, construction, sort of like the professional
Yep.
fields.
Mm-hmm.
People went to school to learn the stuff that they've learned, and they
Yes.
probably spent a lot of years doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
then they spent a lot of years practicing, but it was the technical stuff that they were learning. We're
Mm-hmm.
just talking about a different skill set here,
Mm-hmm.
and you might, I mean, most people can fake it, it's true, but why would you want to? Like, you went to
Mm-hmm.
school for all those years to learn all that other stuff. There's school for this too. How do you lead
Yeah.
people properly and effectively? Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think, it's learning, we're in different worlds now, Tara. I'm sure, we're not all working in the same office anymore. There's different ways
Yeah.
we're communicating, whether it's text, email, whatever the messaging thing. Maybe we're on a video call. There's different ways you can influence folks. And if you're not
Mhm.
aware of this, like when you said you may be doing it in an unhealthy way, and why
Yeah.
not get healthier, right?
Why not? Yeah. Why not? It's usually the real reason why not is time.
Yeah.
But once people see the benefits, they find that suddenly they have time.
Well, and to your point, I mean, we've talked with a lot of technical folks, but it starts perhaps in your workplace, but I'm sure, like you said, it's going to expand into your relationship with your spouse, your
Yeah.
children, other folks, right? So it's going to enrich all aspects of your life, hopefully.
Yeah. Once you see these influence principles, you start to see them everywhere. You can't just limit it to your workplace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know we're getting to the end of the podcast here. There's way more I want to go into with it, but we just don't have enough time this time around. So you have to come back, or maybe I'll get you and Jonathan on. We'll do a group
Oh, that would be really
really
fun.
fun,
Yeah.
right? So we'll have. I haven't done a full roundtable in a while, so I got to do another episode. But since we've covered a lot, and I'm going to make sure all of your links are provided in our show notes. And by the way, people, please leave any comments you have. We'll make sure Tara gets them, whatever format it is. It's on YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever you're finding us. But I always like to give our guests an opportunity, Tara, to just, we've talked a lot of different things here. If I've not done anything yet, I'm listening to this and saying, where do I start? What do I do? I know there's a problem. I know I'm not having the influence I want to have. What would you say to that person, that business owner, that individual? Where do they start? Where would they go? What should they
I
do?
would first of all tell them that they just got started. They already started. They did just by
Yeah.
listening to this and coming to the
Yes.
end of this. And there's probably one thing that they heard that really resonated with them, that just that one little spark. Go try
Mm-hmm.
that. Go try
Yes.
that. And remember, all you're doing is learning how to play the guitar. That's it. So you're not going to be the best at it the first time you do it. But every time you try, you're going to get a little better. And once you get those results, maybe you'll want to try something else.
Oh, that's great, Tara. Thank you so much for being here with us on the podcast. We really appreciate your insights. So everybody, if you love when you like, subscribe, share it with your network. If you're interested in being on the podcast, we love having new guests. Tara, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks, David. It was a great conversation.
All right, everybody. Until next time, be well. Thanks for joining us on the Business Roundtable podcast.